There can be no doubt that the intentions of most collectivists are very noble. It is their desire to help others. Their only problem is that they're going about it in a terrible way. As they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Freedom and prosperity takes more than good intentions. It takes correct principles. A story of Davy Crockett illustrates this matter. Davy Crockett was a member of Congress for several years in the early 19th century. He once voted to have Congress come to the financial aid of a community ravaged by fire. Afterward, a thoughtful constituent of his challenged him to justify this act through any clause in the Constitution, which Crockett, of course, could not. His constituent chided him for being generous with other people's money. Later, a similar situation came before Congress when it was proposed to give a large sum of money to the widow of a prestigious naval officer. Here is what Davy Crockett said to Congress. Mr. Speaker, I have as much sympathy as any man in the House, but Congress has no power to appropriate this money as an act of charity. Every member upon this floor knows it. We have the right, as individuals, to give away as much of our own money as we please in charity. But as members of Congress, we have no right so to appropriate a dollar of the public money. Mr. Speaker, I have said we have the right to give as much money of our own as we please. I am the poorest man on this floor. I cannot vote for this bill, but I will give 1 week's pay to the object, and if every member of Congress will do the same, it will amount to more than the bill asks. One thing should be made perfectly clear. Individualists are not against giving. We should give to those of lesser means. Giving is a vital part of being a Christian. We must give to those in need if we are able. But such action must be strictly voluntary, or there is very little benefit to anyone. It is necessary that all giving be done not by force, but through voluntary action. Many profess that redistribution of wealth and the welfare state is the charitable way, and that it is therefore good, and so a socialistic government seeks to force its people into being charitable. But in doing so, the individual's freedom to choose, their most fundamental right since before the foundation of the earth was laid, is taken away. In robbing individuals of their free agency and stifling free enterprise, wealth redistribution makes the individual a thing to be acted upon, rather than a thing to act like is meant for mankind. It is impossible to force someone to be charitable if they do not wish to be. To do so is to simply steal their property. Thou shalt not steal, the Lord said. Contrastly, the true spirit of giving is a voluntary thing, and thus they should impart of their substance of their own free will and good desires towards God. The Scriptures also declare that he that is compelled in all things receiveth no reward. Force is the plan of Satan. Recall that in the pre-existence, Satan wanted to force God's children to do what was right. This plan God rejected outright, because the plan of force brings no glory. It is only in freedom of choice and action that the children of God are glorified in their works. Persuasion to do good is the correct way, not force. In contrast to the satanic method of force, the Lord has said, I have suffered to be established the Constitution, that every man may act in doctrine and principle pertaining to futurity, according to the moral agency which I have given unto him, that every man may be accountable for his own sins in the day of judgment. Collectivists think they are morally superior because they think wealthy people should be divested of their means to give to the poor. But is it really charitable to be generous with other people's money? This is not charity. That's called theft. Socialism and the welfare state breed an unrighteous sense of entitlement without work. But if a person wants to live in comfort, then, according to God, they must be willing to work for that privilege. "Thou shalt not be idle," the Lord said, "for he that is idle shall not eat the bread, nor wear the garments of the laborer." In the beginning the Lord told Adam, "By the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread." In other words, the Lord's standard was that if Adam wished to eat, he would have to work. In contrast to this, Satan told Cain that there was a secret by which Cain could take his brother's possessions by force and without earning them. These secret combinations, which were taught to Cain, continue to this day and are found in government when the people of the nation are not vigilant. The solution to the world's problems is not government welfare. Government welfare robs from the workers and keeps the impoverished in a state of complacency. The true solution is industrious labor and individuals voluntarily giving to private charity in the spirit of Christianity and goodwill. To answer those who would argue that voluntary private charity is not enough to fulfill the needs of others, remember that these government programs we have today did not always exist in the United States. It was once a free country, and people were prosperous and giving. Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman remarked, "The capitalist system, the private enterprise system, in the 19th century did a far better job of expressing that sense of compassion than the governmental welfare programs are today. The 19th century, the period which people denigrate as the high tide of capitalism, was a period of the greatest outpouring of alimony and charitable activity the world has ever known. And one of the things that I hold against the welfare system most seriously is that it has destroyed private charitable arrangements which are far more effective, far more compassionate, and far more person-to-person in helping people who are really, through no fault of their own, in disadvantaged situations." By giving through voluntary private donation, the giver not only gives willingly, but has far greater control over where their money goes. Individuals are better able to spend their own money than government can for them, especially when it comes to giving to charitable causes. And what government might deem worthy of charitable donation, a private individual may be opposed to. Which sort of system should we prefer then? Voluntary charity of private enterprise is highly efficient and cost-effective. It respects private property and freedom of action. It glorifies the giver of the gift. It is much more likely to encourage self-improvement and independence. The receiver of the gift is grateful for the voluntary action. It takes care of the poor much more effectively than government programs, as Milton Friedman pointed out. It is more compassionate and personal. The giver can control to a large degree where their contribution goes. It is truly a manifestation of godliness. As for government welfare programs, these are notoriously inefficient and wasteful. Private property is crassly stolen from its true owner. There is no reward for the victim of the theft. It creates complacency, dependency, and a sense of entitlement. It creates unmanageable debt for government. Government welfare is bureaucratic and faceless. The government doles out handouts to many who really shouldn't receive them. The money disappears into a black hole and is spent at the government's discretion, regardless of its true owner's wishes. And of course, it requires the satanic use of force. People are actually quite giving by nature to a surprising degree, and virtually everything that government sets its hand to do before long is bungled in bureaucracy, inefficiency, and corruption. Why is it that so many are collectivists and look to the government to solve society's problems? It is clear that collectivists have no confidence in individuals, yet they have supreme confidence in government. Individualists, on the other hand, have great confidence in the individual and very little confidence in government, and justly so. As a parting thought regarding the proper way of giving charity and the merits of voluntary giving over the disaster of government welfare, let us consider the wisdom of Founding Father Benjamin Franklin. To relieve the misfortunes of our fellow creatures is concurring with deity. It is godlike. But if we provide encouragement for laziness and supports for folly, may we not be found fighting against the order of God and nature, which perhaps has appointed want and misery as the proper punishments for, and cautions against, as well as necessary consequences of, idleness and extravagance? Whenever we attempt to amend the scheme of Providence, and to interfere with the government of the world, we had need be very circumspect, lest we do more harm than good.